Welcome to another episode of Angels, Positivity, and Love. Incredible guests the world over with amazing experiences, amazing transformative journeys quite often. And oftentimes these experts not only share insights, but they're also giving service to others. They've decided that that's the highest calling, is simply helping others from their heart. Today, no exception, coming to us for a second time. If you want to check him out on the APL Spotlight series, he told his personal life story, two heart attacks in 2022, I believe it was, 2009, two heart attacks, one on the airplane, one at the hospital, and well documented, incredible story. You really have to check this out. We're going to have him again on in the future, end of 2025, if he'd like to come back. Former California Highway Patrol, law enforcement, city manager, business consultant worldwide, a lot of other backgrounds as well. So the thing is, he was living a life a certain way that I think most of us do. No particular concern about anything. It's just you should hear. We'll have him recap some of the highlights before we get into the nitty gritty of maybe what the universe is about, spirituality, how can we walk a smoother path, and just breathe easier, relax more. I'd like to welcome Robert Bare, coming to us from, I believe, Oregon. I mispronounce everything, forgive me. But Robert, good to see you again. Great to have you on the show. And it was so fantastic having you on the first time.
Thank you so much for inviting me again, and I want to thank you again for inviting me. And I want to tell your audience it's a real treat to be here and a blessing to be able to talk to you about some of the things I want to share with everybody today.
Oh, beautiful. And one more bit of background. You were on the board of IANDS, which is going to mess this up a little bit, the International Association of Near-Death Studies, if I got it right. But the point is, it's one of the bigger associations just talking about the afterlife and so on. You and Dr. Yvonne Quezon, who's been a guest as well, will be coming back a second time. People should check her out. She's headquartered, I believe, in Toronto, Canada, but just really gave a good interview the first time. She's had 5 near-death experiences. Here you both were on a board, and then you both got sort of a touch on the shoulder from the universe saying, hey, start up a different organization, which you did. Spiritual Awakenings International is global, touching a lot of countries. It might be up to 40 or so today. You're not only a co-founder, you're vice president, with Yvonne being a co-founder. And I've been fortunate enough to be listed, just for disclosure purposes, on your website of affiliates where you put this show, Angels, Positivity, and Love, on there. Luckily, our show started with an A, so we're like 6 from the top. Could you start wherever you'd like to start to sort of recap what you covered before in the other show? But people will have to go to that for the juicy details. And then take us where you want to with like angels, the universe, how much love is really the key to everything.
Well, in a quick recap, you touched on this a little bit. My background was such that I was a California Highway Patrolman. I was in police work for 23 years. I retired from that and I started to do a variety of other things because I had gone to school all the time that I was um, in police work and acquired a few degrees and some teaching credentials. So I started being a university professor and had a faculty staff job, ran 6 programs on one campus, and then I started getting recruited by, for lack of a better term, headhunters recruited me, and I became a community manager. Did that for 5 years and was a general manager of a water company. And then I went back into being a community manager. Uh, did one more job in California, and then I left there and took a job in Oregon, and retired from there. I've retired 3 times. Every time I retire, I end up back to work. And when I retired from the city manager position in Oregon, I was recruited by another headhunter to work as an international business consultant based in Chicago. I was allowed to live in Oregon, but I was basically working in Chicago, and I was in 8 to 10 planes a week. I had a really busy schedule, real busy life, very black and white, very structured. I grew up my mother was a devout Catholic, and she kind of ruled the roost in our family when it came to spirituality, and went to even the University of San Francisco, where I went to both to get my bachelor's and also my graduate degrees. It's Jesuit, so I have that background. You know, nothing about past lives or all these things that I'm open to now. And by indicating that my life massively changed, um, I had two near-death experiences on the same day in which I was deceased. And one was for about 45 minutes, and I recovered from that. But that was an experience where I ended up gravitating into a light, into just a fantastic realm with all these different colors that don't exist on Earth, and ended up in a scenario where I had a life review in front of a higher power, which I could not look at. It was so humbling. I could not do it. But I was asked, and I don't know whether this was telepathically or whether this was in what language, but I understood what I was asked, and that had to do with what good I had done in my life. And my life review started off on my left, and there were all types of souls there. It was an auditorium, but it wasn't an auditorium. It's just all over. And I saw my life come before me from the time I was conceived until the time that I passed. And I experienced all the emotional things all over again. And not only could I feel my feelings, but I could also experience what other people thought of me. And I did not like what I saw. I realized I was pretty radical, too black and white, too strict, not as compassionate as I could have been in different situations. I like to refer to this life review sometimes as a reckoning for me. Um, the one thing I will bring up, in addition to what I just stated, during my life review process, which was on my left, to my right, I felt something fidgeting, and it was my dog Scooter that had died in 2001. And we did everything together. She was just a wonderful friend, and she was there. She couldn't come to me, but she was so excited to see me.
Mm.
And I kept looking at her and looking at my life review, and um, but then I ended up back in my body in an emergency room in a hospital, and I died again. And this one, I hovered on the top of the bed of the gurney as they were working on me, and I could see the flat line. Distinctively remember seeing the flat line on a screen. And they were panicking, and someone had said, "Oh, we lost him." And as they were working on me, something else caught my attention in another part of the hospital. It was a couple of people that were going through, I think it was called the admissions uh, portion of the hospital. They were going through my stuff that had come in on the ambulance looking for, trying to find out who the hell I was. And when they were looking specifically for insurance cards, I heard them talking about that. And I was trying to tell them where I kept my insurance cards because as a retired policeman, I had two wallets, one with my police ID and information, the other one with stuff like credit cards and social security card and stuff like that. And my insurance cards were in my police ID. I was trying to tell them that. And I realized they can't hear me. I must be dead. And they finally opened up my wallet, and there was my police ID, and they were just they said, "Whoa, this guy's a retired police." And just a few moments later, I ended up back in my body on the gurney, and I had been revived again. And I was deceased about 10, I was told I was deceased about 10 minutes at that time. had a wonderful doctor from Pakistan. He was just, the guy would not let me die. And it was a wonderful man. And I ended up in the hospital and with all these machines hooked up to me and an intensive care heart ward. And I mean, it was just, I was a mess. And I was trying to hold on until my kids saw me, both of them. That was my goal. And believe me, it was rough. And the doctor would come in and he would talk to me all the time. And he asked me if I remembered anything time that I was deceased. And I said, I do. And I wondered if it was because somebody was doing CPR on me or he worked a defibrillator on me to keep the oxygen going in me. I have no idea what happened, but on the plane when I passed away from the massive heart attack, there were a couple of firemen from the Pacific Northwest and also a doctor who worked on me. I don't remember anything about that because I had gravitated into the light. But I had like a flailed chest, and I mean I was a mess. And but I told the doctor I do remember quite a bit. So he was asking me, and I mentioned something about the admissions going through my stuff. He goes, "Really?" He said, "You actually heard them talking to each other?" And I said, "I did." And I said, "I was trying to converse with them at the same time." So lo and behold, he found these two people, brought them back to the intensive care ward. They were right alongside of me, bedside with the doctor. And he says, "Robert, you tell them what you told me, what had happened." And I told them. And both of them looked at each other and they said, "That's exactly what happened, word for word." So I had two different near-death experiences on the same day. And I brought this up to your audience last time because it's not just like gravitating into a light. You can have a near-death experience like I did, where you're hovering over the bed. Uh, and being involved in Spiritual Awakenings International and the sharing circles we have, I've been amazed at the different types of near-death experiences that there are. So people used to think people like me were crazy, and maybe I am a little crazy. I don't know, but I came back to life, and I feel it's part of the reason I came back was to talk about this because there was a time people that would talk like I'm talking might have been burned at the stake. Uh, I mean, that's reality, or cast out, or put in some sort of a insane institution or whatever. And that's why I've been very guarded, especially at first, about who I discuss this with. But when the big turning point was the I Survived Beyond and Back TV show. When I was on that, which was the first show I did, it just my whole life had changed ever since then. But some of the things that have happened to me are unique. And I think if your audience were to really reflect on their lives, they may have had the same type of exposure. And I'm going to specifically talk about what I think are like angel encounters. Um, and this is the first time I have talked about this in public. I talk about it when I'm in sharing circles. I talked about it yesterday, as a matter of fact, and could not believe the response. So I'm going to mention a few of them and explain what had happened. And I actually saw this one in my life review. So, and it involved when I was on an airplane from Salt Lake City to Houston, Texas. And I was living in Padre Island at the time. I had done a job and I'd actually took a flight and had to catch the connector from Salt Lake to Houston so I could get home. And it was on a smaller plane, like there were just two people on the left side of the in the aisle, and I was in the plane, and there was a gentleman sitting next to me. I was really tired, and we never talked until the flight was about to end. I was tired. I thought he was tired, but for some reason or other, he asked me, and it was in a normal voice. He asked me, "Do you ever read the Bible?" And I said, "Yes, I do. I have." And he said, "Why don't you read Matthew 18:18?" And I thought, "What's he?" I said, why are you asking? Why are you saying that? And he goes, "Just read it." And about that time, the plane landed. We started to leave our seats and go into the terminal. I looked around for him because I wanted to continue the conversation. I couldn't find him. And I went to baggage claim to get my bags, and I thought, well, this is strange. He had the most piercing eyes I've ever seen in my life. And that's what struck me. It was like, because we'd just been sitting there. And when he turned to look at me, it was like, wow, talk about eyes. And so this was a weekend, and I had that Matthew 18:18 entrenched in my brain, but I never read it. And I decided to go to church one day, and I just moved to Texas, so I was looking for a church, and I stumbled into this black church, and I thought, well, I'm going to try this out. So I go in, sit down. The pastor gets up, and he said, "You know, I was going to lecture today and give a sermon on a certain topic." And he said, "I was getting ready today to um, go to church and talk to you." He says, "All of a sudden, I got this inspiration to talk about Matthew 18:18." And he said, "I don't know why, but we're going to have a sermon on Matthew 18:18." I thought, holy cow, what is going on here? Of all the parts in the Bible. So, anyways, I listened to the sermon. I didn't have to read the Bible after that. I mean, he just did an eloquent job. And as everybody was leaving the church, he went out to where the entrance to the church was and was thanking everybody for coming and so on and so forth. And I stopped and I said, you know, I was on a plane and I told him what had happened. And I said, this individual asked me to read Matthew 18:18, and I hadn't done it. And I said, here it is. This was the topic of your sermon today. And he broke down and started to cry. He goes, you're the reason that I'm supposed to be talking about this. And I said, well, I don't know if I'm the reason, but I said, I appreciate this. And I was still part of that rigid part of my life where it was all black and white. It didn't even I didn't even comprehend the full magnitude of what was going on. But the pastor did, because he was asking about who was that guy that was talking to you, and I said, I don't know his name. I said he was quiet until the very end, and then he got up, and for some reason he asked me if I read the Bible, and I said yes, and he told me to read this section, and he goes, I had to be an angel. And I said, I don't know what it was. It was just a nice man. And he wanted me to describe him and so on and so forth. And so that is one encounter that I started to reflect on a lot after I had my near-death experiences. I
Can you
realized
remind us what Matthew 18:18 is roughly about?
it's about getting protection. Um, asking for it and getting it for your home, for yourself. It's a great part. I mean, I want to encourage your audience to read it. Um, Coincidentally, since that day, I read it every day. It's just a small blurb, but for some reason or other, it's like it protects you from demons and from things like that. And I just started to develop a habit of doing it from that point on. But that's one encounter I'm going to talk about. Another one, I I had a really good friend that passed away a few years ago, and I had helped him during his chemotherapy. He lived down in the Bay Area, but I lived in Oregon, and sometimes I go down when he had his chemotherapy and pick him up and take him back up to Oregon till he had to have his next bout, which was usually every other week at that time. And then he'd get down to the Bay Area, have his chemo again, and if he got sick, I would take him back up to Oregon and let him stay with me. He'd been married to my cousin, and my cousin passed, and I just kind of took him in as family. Um, he basically didn't have any family. So he passed away from the cancer. And I had nothing to do with what him and his wife, my cousin, had planned, like with their will or trust or whatever you want to call it. Um, they had a nice home in the Napa area in California. Um, but I got a call from the executor of the estate who said, Robert, can you come down and pick up a few items that Dave wanted you to have? And I said, well, I had just got back from California, and I said, well, can I wait till my next trip? And he said, no. I'm afraid that these things will be taken, uh, or somebody will come in and possibly remove them, theft wise or whatever. And I said, well, what is it? And this guy had been a musician. He had all these musical instruments. He played in big bands and was a session studio musician. After he married my cousin, she didn't want him traveling all over. So I said, okay. I said, what am I picking up? And I was told, well, there's some guns here he wanted you to have. And I'd actually taught him how to shoot. Um, I'd been a weapons training officer when I was with the California Highway Patrol, so I know how to shoot all these different things. And I didn't know that he had acquired all this an arsenal. So, anyways, I didn't really know what I was getting into. I decided to drive my truck down, which is a four-wheel drive, and on the road from Oregon to California, I took I-5, and there's a part of I-5 called Ashland, Oregon, and then there's a part called Mount Shasta, Oregon, and it snows a lot there sometimes in the wintertime. So that's why I took the four-wheel drive. I had read on the weather report that there were chances of snow flurries. So I start down there, go to go to the home and had all these guns. I put them in my truck and I thought, I hope I don't get stopped by the by the police with all these weapons in here. And I thought, you know, I didn't feel comfortable doing it really, but I thought, well, I'm going to drive home. And so I started driving up I-5, and it had been snowing by that time and snowing heavily. And I got to a place called Weed, California, pulled into a truck uh, plaza, or I guess it'd be a truck stop. And wanted to get something to eat, and I'd been beat down driving in the snow, and had to use the restroom too. So I get out, and as I start to go into the plaza, there's this man sitting on the concrete walkway right in front of the door. And it was cold. And I looked at him and he nodded at me and I said hi. But I walked right in and I went and used the restroom. And then I went, they had a little deli in this truck stop. And I thought, well, what sounds good? There was some pizza there. There was two pieces of pizza. So I said, I'll take those two pieces of pizza, but could you put them in individual boxes? And they said, yeah. So I got those and I got two waters. And as I left the plaza, he was still sitting on the concrete and there was another person with him. So I asked him, uh, I said, how long has it been since you ate anything? He said, well, it's been a while. And he goes, are you going to Oregon? And I had told myself after I had my near death experiences, I would never lie ever. I did not want to lie ever. So I said, no. I had all these guns I knew he was going to hit me up for a ride. I had all these guns in my truck, and I really didn't want to have anybody in my truck with these guns in there. But this guy had the most piercing eyes I'd ever seen. And there was another guy with him. They were looking at me, and I said, "I got you a piece of pizza." I gave it to him, and I gave the other guy the piece I was going to eat. I gave it to him, and I gave him each one of them a water. And I said, "It's awful cold. Is there some place you guys can go to?" And they said, "Oh, we'll be all right." I said, I'll be all right." So I get in my truck. I start to drive to Oregon, and Michael, it snowed so hard, there was no reason I should have been on that road. I mean, it was pounding. I was crazy to be out there, but I had all these guns in my truck, and I was obsessed about getting home and getting him out of that. You know, I didn't want all these things in uh, in my possession, especially on an open roadway. There wasn't one vehicle that passed me ever. I never saw another vehicle in my lane. I drove over the pass in Ashland, came down, and it was snowing in a town called Ashland and a town called Medford. There was nobody on the road ahead of me. And I got to a place called Grants Pass, Oregon, and I thought to myself, I can't do this any longer. I am beat. So I'm going to get myself a motel room. So I pulled off and I went into a motel, and there's a little place where you can park your vehicle while you're registering into trying to get a room. So I pulled into that. I looked up, and there was that guy that I had seen at the truck plaza staring at me. I got out of the truck, and he pointed at me and just smiled. And I thought, there's no way nobody passed me. He caught me in a lie. He just disappeared. I don't know what happened. I just, I was looking, I turned just for a moment. He disappeared. I was going to say something to him. I got in my truck and I drove around thinking, well, maybe he's in the neighborhood somewhere or something. No, he wasn't. But I'll tell you, after seeing that, I drove the rest of the way home because I could not, there's no way I could sleep. That was an encounter.
Mhm.
And the eyes don't lie. just the way he looked at me, but the smirk and the smile on his face, he knew he caught me in a lie. And I'd swore I'd never do it again. He caught me. So that's another encounter that I wanted to bring up. And I have had a couple of them in the last few years where there's actually been people with me that have witnessed them. So I wanted to maybe spend a few moments and talk about these. One of them has to do with um, a situation that happened at a Walmart in the town where I live in Newport. Uh, I'm back working, and the place where I work, we decided to buy a um, barbecue for to take to this apartment complex so the people could use it for barbecuing hot dogs or hamburgers or steaks or whatever, and also social functions. And I had my truck, and no one else had a truck, so I decided to go ahead and pick it up. So I took somebody, a work colleague, with me, and her and I we went to Walmart, and she went in there and was wheeling this thing out, and I said, "That's not a barbecue, that's a grill. That's what you use like to make pancakes." Uh, I said, "That's not what we're picking up. We're picking up a barbecue." She goes, "Oh." So she goes in, gets the right one. It's already assembled and everything because it rolls, it's on wheels. So she rolls it out. And we get to the front of the store where they have to check out. They were checking out big items and stuff. And she rolls it over to me. And I asked the guy, that the greeter or whatever the guy is at from the Walmart employee. I said, "Is there any way I could get some help in having this thing loaded in my truck?" And he said, "We don't do that." And I said, "Well, this lady, she's in her 60s and I'm in my 70s. I said, it's going to be rough for me to John Wayne this thing, get it into the truck." Um, all of a sudden, the voice said, "I'll be glad to help." The lady, her name is Elizabeth, turned around, and I turned around, and all of a sudden, this guy showed up. He wasn't there before. And he goes, "I'll help you." So I thought, well, okay, I'll take it. And Elizabeth goes, "That's awful nice of you and kind of you." He said, "No problem." So we wheeled it out to my truck. And as I took the tailgate down, I don't know how he jumped up. He jumped up into the bed. And Elizabeth and I were looking at each other. And all of a sudden, another guy showed up. And he goes, "I'll help. We'll do this." So they pick it up and put it in the bed of the pickup truck. And the one guy says, "Why don't you get your Oregon Duck sweatshirt in your truck and bring it here? We'll wrap it around this thing so it doesn't get scratched up." And I thought, how does he know I have an Oregon here? and Elizabeth goes, "You have one of those in your truck, Robert?" And I said, well, I didn't even know it was in there. I actually opened it, and there it is. It was not on the top, but on the floorboard, there was stuff over it. So I picked it up, brought it out. He wrapped it around. And I looked at Elizabeth, and we looked at each other. And then I said, "Thank you." And then they were gone. And she goes, "What just happened here?" And I said, "If you want to know my perception of it," I said, "you probably wouldn't believe it." She says, "Well, they were just right here." And those two men were angels, no doubt about it. And She talked about it the rest of the day at work. And we're telling everybody about it. I didn't say nothing. I mean, I,
Are you
I,
ready to maybe we'll circle back. If you got more stories, we're gonna do them, but let's at least blow some sage. And if
yes,
you want, and what I often do on the shows, and just so people know, a lot of guests take steps on the show, usually towards the end. So we're one of those unique, rare shows where you actually really do want to stick around to the end. You can participate the way you're seeing the guests participate. It could be blowing lit sage. It could be putting up photos of angels and people listen, get hugs. You can see light around you. You can even see angels. We've had even 3 panelists on the same mind, body, spirit panel do joint seeing. It's a lot. But what will you allow for? Skip angels, universe, love, and everything else for just a second. It's a lot. Thinking gets in the way of us just breathing and smiling. But if you want, I'll put up a couple photos of angels. You can hear about the man on the plane. You can hear about the diner, then later the motel in Oregon, who that might have been. And you can hear about the Walmart and those gentlemen. Whether you share it out loud or not, that'll be up to you. I think it would be really cool if you did get clear answers and wanted to share it. It would make this the most unique, fun, experience. And I mean this in a way that I always encourage people to ask for it. Ask for an angel to show up on your path. Sparkly eyes, I always say that. And what will you allow for? We've had guests on the show have this actually happen after they've taped their first show. A woman in California got to run into her guardian angel for half an hour in full human form. You pinch them, they don't say ouch. They pinch you, you say ouch. You get a good laugh. So let's go basic though. I've only got one bit of roller structure, which in 13 years of doing this, I'll look very vacuous. Oh, set your intent, ask angels, universe to get you out of your head into your heart and smell some sage. I got to light it. And we did this before the show. We did this on the last show. Please check out Robert Bare on APL Spotlight series. Just go to, this channel, but go to that other series. Crystal clear storytelling and sharing. Robert's very good at sharing, very good at inspiring. And there's some sage smoke, leave your eyes on it. And it's really doing everything from the heart. Your heart knows how to do smelling without smelling, the Zen thing. So, Robert, are you already getting in Oregon a little bit of sage smoke?
I am.
Good enough. If anybody wants to get flowers, you don't even have to see the sage smoke to get flowers. You don't even have to have me light this to get sage. Ask for a little bit of flowers in the air while I buy time here to snub this out. And then there's an angel named Joy. She's really big, pink ball of light. These are photos that actually have moved, pulse. You could see her in a full human form if you want to look out your window to a tree. You have to be a little loosey-goosey. At Omega Institute in 2022, 3 people got to see her as a brunette. I always say blonde, but first, could you just ask her for a hug and a private question? What do you need to know for the weekend? Get your answer. You already got everything. Good. Then for the man on the plane, if you want to close your eyes and have her explain who it was, but you can see him all over again, let him wink to you, breathe through your mouth with the 1 millimeter open through the mouth. The more you breathe and are in your body, the more flavor and the more what's it called? 8K instead of 5K for your TV visual. And have her explain who it was and just give us a thumbs up that you got the answer. And then if you want to ask her, what can you publicly disclose? I don't think it's a big deal, but this has really got to be your decision or her decision or their decision. Who'd you get for who that was?
I didn't get a name.
Archangel Michael, Fred, John.
No name, but um, that message was for me. Doubt.
And for the concrete sidewalk before the truck stop diner for the 2 slices of pizza, and then later there was another gentleman. I'd like to put up kind of a human-looking photograph for Abe, the Abraham of old, an angel on everyone's team, grandfatherly energy, fatherly energy, whichever way you're more comfortable. Catch a comfortable tobacco pipe smoke in the air if you want. He loves showing up on the ground, down to earth. Why don't we have you ask him who that was in front of the truck stop? Just breathe through your mouth, relax, and let me know when you've picked up the vibe. You're getting it?
Actually, that looks a lot like him.
Yeah, so ask him if it was him who was sitting on the ground. If you need to close your eyes and see him all over again.
He's not saying, but it looks like him.
Here's Archangel Michael. Ask Michael what you need to know about that moment. It's obviously very not important who they were. totally believe angels. Yes. Just, you can hear from Michael. Yes. 2 angels.
I was tested.
Oh, man. But you can ask Michael, who was the second angel, not the first?
I'm not getting anything, Michael.
Okay, no worries. But hear from Charlotte, another angel, why it's all a-okay. You're not being judged. It was just an opportunity for extra growth, which is a hard thing for humans to allow for with thinking. And she should say yes, right on with that.
Absolutely, yes.
No one was like knocking a scorecard over here and you did something wrong or something. But and then there was a third one. Got to remember this: the Walmart, the 2 gentlemen. We should do this. I'm going to put up Michael, Charlotte, and Joy. What can we all know about that? Those 2 fine fellows helping out, and what is either all 3 at once, Joy, Michael, or Charlotte? Someone's going to speak up. Who's getting your attention the most, and what are you getting for all of us that we can now know looking back? A little reveal.
I seem to be getting Joy.
Was she one of them? She's shown up as a man for me at a restaurant in Austin, Texas.
That could be what this. I'm kind of getting that vibe.
Okay, I'll give the context on this. I was just beginning to pop 13 years ago. Everyone I met was turning into like a psychic. I mean, some of my friends, I didn't doubt it. I had a person very close to me who was intuitive. I got goosebumps, but I didn't have a way to process it or to appreciate it beyond that. I didn't doubt it. I didn't have a way to relate. Like watching Russian ballet, and I didn't know what it was about and didn't like it necessarily. But I wanted to get away from everyone and go have a burger at a place called Zach's down by the Opera House in downtown Austin. I get in there, it's empty. The bartender isn't the usual one and is very scarce. And I take the same stool where I'd been 3 months earlier. And in walks the same human who sat next to me 3 months earlier. And we're amazed. And it's a regular human, no sparkly eyes, but a really sparkly guy. And he had done album cover design in the 1970s, but now he's a real estate guy. And he's shocked. We haven't both been back to the place in 3 months since we sat there. We had a pleasant conversation. Again, normal human being, safe. But at the end of the bar is the only other customer in sight. It's a Hispanic looking Nick Nolte in a big jacket, eating very methodically, like out of a mindfulness video. And I am stuck on one concept, that maybe ghosts exist. And I've been stuck on this for weeks and I can't get it out of my head. I'm so consumed. Like I haven't met any angels, haven't met any India figures, anybody. Hadn't taken any photos of angels. And somehow I'm out of my stool during this meal. And I go down to the guy at the end of the bar and I'm asking him, do ghosts exist? Well, who does that? And it was Joy in Hispanic Nick Nolte form. I looked into the eyes. I saw galaxies spinning. From that moment on, I never worried about ghosts again. Literally had divine intervention. They came in, threw me over the fence, the ghost issue topic, because I was like an idiot, stuck on that topic. I think it's easy to get stuck on that topic if you're worried. And so I got tossed over the fence. And that was my little sharing for a second. Did you have a 4th one you wanted to share with us?
I am going to just take a moment to talk about this one because this happened recently and there's another witness to it. And I really enjoy having people experience this with me. It just makes it more credible. So people don't think you're crazy. But I had this teenage guy, a young man, help me move some stuff out of storage. And we're in my truck and we were at the storage facility. And it was a Saturday afternoon, late afternoon. And we had this one item. It was a workbench. It was pretty heavy. And he's probably 16 years old, but he's really strong. And I'm 76 years old, so I'm not what I used to be. I'll put it that way. And we were going to have to muscle this thing into the back of my truck to move it. And I told him, I said, I don't know if we can get this in. All of a sudden, a golf cart drove up, and there was a guy in the golf cart, and he stops, And he says, "You guys need help?" And I said, "Boy, do we." He says, "I'll be glad to help you." He did the same thing that one in Walmart did. He jumps in the back of the truck. I don't know how he did it. He just kind of gets up in the back of the pickup truck, and I'm thinking, how did he do that? And he says, "Well, get it, angle it over here, and I'll lift it up." So we angled it, and he said, "Be careful. There's a sharp piece underneath that's bent." And I thought to myself, really? Because it was a brand new workbench. And both the young man and I were on one end, he was on the other, and he just lifted this thing up and put it in the bed of the truck, and there was a bent sharp piece. And I said, "Well, thank you for helping me." He goes, "It's my pleasure." And I turned around and looked back, and he'd gotten down and he got into the golf cart. And I said, "Well, I got to sweep this thing out." And I said, "Are you going to be in the office?" And I want to close my account here, and I'm all done with a storage shed, the storage unit. And he goes, "Well," he said, "the office is closed." And he says, "I don't work here." And I said, "Well, what about the golf cart?" He just smiled. He drove off and it disappeared. And the young guy said, "What was that just happened?" And I said, "I don't know," but I said, I knew. I didn't want to say anything. I said, "We just had a really nice person help us today." And I said, "Just look at it that way." And the office was closed. And I actually had to make another trip to come back to straighten everything out. And that was an angel.
Robert,
No doubt about it.
I got another way to do it for you if you want. No photos this time, or just hear from Joy. You've got this. So set your intent to be as open as possible. Your opening openness. Remember, the heart has no limits. Just sit still, close your eyes, let a little pink light come in, breathe through the mouth extra so the shoulders move up and down. Ask for the guy in the golf cart. Ask him to come in. You might just feel him. You might get a little squeeze on the shoulder, catch a scent in the air. It might smell like burgers flipping, the cooking smell. But ask him if he was one of the prior ones or an actual additional angel coming in. Get an indicator that way. And then if you want to see a t-shirt and a name on it, you can see the name on the t-shirt like John or Fred or
I just been told that he's an additional. And I don't remember what he was wearing that day. It was one of those things where you don't
But close your eyes and picture your Oregon Duck sweatshirt. And then instead of that stuff on the front of the shirt, let him fill in what the name is. The visual sometimes can be easier. And remember, he may go by a bunch of different names. It depends on the situation. But just feel a lot of light. Most importantly, just get a hug and feel some ripples up and down your back or yummy in the tummy, a good wind in the room, even though, the AC is a certain way, the windows aren't open. I've always run to check my thermostat no matter how often this happens. And if it's meant to be, if you view it as a big deal, it's a big deal. But if it's not a big deal, it's not a big deal. So breathe, allow, let go, and see if you catch a picture of a white t-shirt. Just see the name on the t-shirt and ask for some glitter and sparkles on the name.
get anything, Michael.
Oh, that's okay. But do get a squeeze on the shoulder, get a hug, get a whisper of just ask a reminder for how to walk the smoothest path, have fun.
I'm actually getting chills down my right shoulder and down the arm.
Yay. And I didn't do it. And we're talking happy chills, like love. Yes.
Yeah, I think.
Good. And you can ask for dream time. Have a cup of coffee with them and dream time set up. You may or may not remember. If you're the type that doesn't remember, ask to remember. I think the thing I would just want to remind everybody on is just we have so many ways we limit. There's 40 million reasons we can't be here or be nice to the stranger or to our pooch or take them for an extra walk. Because, the brain is so complex, 40 million reasons why. The heart, there's 4 million ways into the heart. You just have to be good at practicing dodging the brain and getting into the heart. Okay, Robert, from that one, what would you want to leave us with on that fourth experience? The
Well,
story.
the main thing that um, I want to say is I worry about when you start talking a lot to different organizations or groups or on shows, you always worry about your credibility in a way. Even though I'm past that, still, it's nice to have somebody other than yourself relating the stories. And whether it was having Elizabeth with me or this young guy that was helping me, um, it's not just me that witnessed it. And it means a lot to me personally. Um, I'll tell you that encounter I had truck plaza and at the motel, that was a real um, game changer for me. I got, the message I took from it was there's no need to lie. Um, if I probably would have told the truth, talking to him on the sidewalk there when I gave him the pizza and stuff, and just say, I have something in my truck, and it's kind of personal, and I don't feel comfortable. I would have been better off doing that. Um, and yeah, and I think your audience, because they're receptive to things like what I've mentioned, maybe this will help trigger some experiences in their life that maybe they didn't quite understand, but now they're thinking about it. And I had never thought about this till I saw myself in my life review, and I know that angels exist. I know it, and they interact with us all the time. And well, maybe not all the time, but there's times when we need them, and they do. They're there, and so and if you ask for certain things, you might be surprised. You may get some help. So,
Robert, can I share this might take 2 minutes or so, but a quick 1990, there's like a mini recession going on. I've just graduated from Middlebury College. I'm in Nantucket, a lifelong place, a home, but all the jobs are gone. Dishwashing, waiting tables, landscaping. So I've got a timer over my head, 10 days, 2 weeks max, and I'm optimistically in the police station in front of the bulletproof glass, getting a parking permit that those towns had just started getting. To be able to park in the inner zone, you had to have a sticker on your car. So I don't know why I'm getting that, because I'm probably not going to be able to find a job. I'll be off island in 10 days anyhow. But I'm waiting in line. It's very peaceful. Belinda, I forgot, our dispatcher, was behind the bulletproof glass, but I hear door after door inside the station slamming. Someone upset is coming this way. The final door to the outside, a guy steps out in a rain jacket, looks like a fisherman out of a Mrs. Paul's fish sticks commercial, looks like a skinny Santa. And he's got a different outfit, a white shirt when they normally wear in the Massachusetts police local departments, the blue shirts. He slams the door and he leaves, but there's a cloud in the air. And it's the first time I remember publicly being funny, because I do this. I think it was an angel helping me. I did this, jerked my thumb, and I said, "Does that mean there's a job opening here?" And everyone burst out laughing. And the dispatcher was cat-like reflexes. She said, "Are you serious?" And I thought, oh, I mean, I'm not really seasoned. I probably had like 14 summer jobs at that point, but I'm not seasoned at getting a job. And I'm like, yeah, actually, yes, I am. And I was interviewing with the police chief about an hour later, and I got the job sworn in the next day as sort of a meter maid, and there was something else to it. I could write 2 types of tickets, no weapons. I wasn't qualified. I just stood on the top of Main Street and got to ride a mountain bike back then. But so that happened. And then flash forward, they don't pay you a lot. So I'm eating out of cans every fourth or fifth day. I'm living with like 9 people in this tiny little house, but still had a bed, and it was great. And there's a Henry sandwich shop. The owner looked a little bit like you. And very successful business, very happy guy, Henry. And I could not afford the brownies. I could only get the sandwich, and it was once a week I got this treat, maybe twice if I was really lucky. So I'm waiting in line. I've somehow paid for the thing, and I've got a brown bag, and I see Henry, and somehow I'm trapped in the line, can't quite leave yet, but the basket of brownies is there, and this is the owner. He walks up, winks, takes a brownie. He's the owner. He can do anything he wants. And he puts it in my bag and he wishes me well. And I was munching on that brownie. I thanked him. I'm munching on that brownie like 15 minutes later under a tree. It was one of the best moments of my life. It happened twice that summer with Henry, but it wasn't Henry. It was an angel named Dale, at least popping into him and sparkly eyeing him, or it was Henry was somewhere else on the island and somehow he didn't disrupt the whole time space thing. And you'd have to trust me on saying it was an angel. But boy, are those some fond memories from Nantucket. And that would be 34 years ago. I bought you time. Can we go back over now that you know what you know and you know what you don't know? What are three, four, or five really super basic tips for all of us just to take it easy more, to enjoy the small things?
Well, I live every day like it's my last day. And I may have mentioned this before. First thing I do when I get up, I play the old Young Rascals song, It's a Beautiful Morning. I don't care if it's raining outside or it just puts me in the right frame of mind. It's kind of a just kind of a thing that I do, and everybody has their own things they do, I think, but I listen to it, and sometimes if I have a job and I'm at work, I'll play it on my computer. And it just it inspires me to think in terms of, every bird has its own song. Uh, it just sets the tone because life is it's an adventure. It really is an adventure, and you have to enjoy your ride. Whatever you do in life, you have to enjoy it. And I didn't realize this until I passed and came back to life, because I'd always been so strict and rigid and black and white, and now I enjoy everything. If I talk to people, I enjoy the conversations with them. If they want to be strict and rigid to me, well, I say, well, thank you, and just go on my way. But I, I do this other thing, and I did this as a policeman. I used to get in my car and I waved to everybody, and pretty soon everybody would be waving back to you. And I became the public affairs man, probably as a result of that, because no matter where I went, everybody knew who I was. And even today, every time I see a UPS truck or a FedEx truck or whatever, I wave to them, and everybody waves back. It's amazing how you get what you give.
Mm.
Life is what you make of it, and I appreciate the efforts people make, whether it's on my behalf or if they're helping someone else out. I work a lot. I have worked a lot in a homeless shelter type environment, and I've met some of the finest persons I've ever known um, in that experience. And 15 years ago, I wouldn't have done that. Um, Now I do it with pleasure, with a smile on my face, and help people. Now there was this. I was working in the shelter. There was this young lady that came in, and she had two little ones with her, and she wanted some. Want to know if we had any diapers, and I'd given her a bunch of food, and I said, I think we do, but I said, let me go look, and she says, I want to get my kids in the car. I said, well, let me take these things out for you. She goes, oh no, I'll get it myself. And I said, no, I'll follow you out. And just remember, everybody, like this young woman, she's somebody's sister, she's somebody's daughter, she's somebody's granddaughter, she's somebody's friend. You have to look at people like that. And I took the stuff out, and I noticed all of his belongings in her car. And I said, are you living in your car? And she goes, yes, my husband left me. And I said, well, let me go in get some diapers. And I said, I'm going to make a couple of phone calls for you. And I could tell by the way she looked at me that there might have been some domestic violence involved because she just acted differently than, and I made one thing when you're a grant writer, like I've been doing for the last several years, you have contacts with people that have different functions in society. And I called this place and they had an opening where she could go to with her kids. And if all she needed was a chance. And there are stories like her everywhere, especially nowadays. So many homeless people, especially in Oregon where I live. So many people that don't have anything, and they just need a break in life. But you never know. One of them might be an angel. I realize that too, and that's not why I do it. I do it, but I think we get tested sometimes, and I got tested with that situation in Oregon, with the guns in my truck and stuff like that. That was a test. I'm positive of it. And I learned from it. But to your audience, everybody's got to live their own life, but make the most of whatever options you have. And there's nothing to be ashamed of. There's nothing wrong with striving to do better in life. And I think eventually good things happen. Um, I just, I really enjoy helping people now. I really do. And I'm not saying that to pat myself on the back. That's just, that's what's happened to me since I've died and came back to life. I realize um, some people are struggling, but it doesn't take much to turn their lives around. Or maybe they haven't experienced kindness in a long time. I get burned every once in a while, but I expect it.
Yeah.
If I give somebody some money, I would rather that they spend it on food than going down and buying some liquor and a pack of cigarettes, for example. Sometimes I'll just buy them food. But that's what's happened. And your audience can do whatever they want to do. One thing about it, the good Lord has given us free will. It's what we do with that free will that matters. And right now, I choose to be as helpful as I can, be as kind as I can, just like Mother Teresa, be kind. And the next thing she says, be kinder. It's just that is to me uh, how I want to live out the rest of my life, however long I have. And I've had 5,669 additional days of life. I count them every day.
Hmm.
What a blessing. Michael Jackson, the rock star, passed away about the same time I did. And they took him to see a doctor that was renowned for raising the dead. He'd been deceased about 45 minutes. The doctor couldn't revive him. I had this doctor from Pakistan that wouldn't let me die.
Hmm.
And what would Michael Jackson give for 5,669 extra days of life? You have this gift of life, and it's a wonderful thing. And you mentioned this at the start of your broadcast. My passion has been with Spiritual Awakenings International. I have seen so many success stories that's evolved for the last few years, where people they're in our sharing circles and they share things, and you see them 3 or 4 months later, and they'll say, that was good. I've ended up doing this, and now I'm doing that, and they're starting to take those forward steps. Um, You have to do it yourself. It's nice to have someone to support you, but here again, it's free will, and it's when you can make those steps. I don't know if I'm making sense or not,
Oh, you're
but
doing great. And I have a quick quote from that angel named Dale, the one from the Henry Sandwich Shop. Very easy one that related to what you were just talking about when you were waving to people, that part. Here's a quote from an angel. Take it with a grain of salt, but very gentle quote. Sometimes the person next to you or a stranger just needs validation via love and compassion. A smile changes any moment. So too does laughter or a few kind words. Be compassion to all. Do it. What's your reaction to that?
spot on, spot on.
Are we ready for more gentleness, kindness, less rat race, less thinking?
Bring it on.
Well, Robert, it's been great to have you on Angels Positivity and Love. With your permission, I'll see if you want to come back on later in the end of 2025 to come back on, but there might be a panel or something we can get you on with a few other folks.
Anything I can do to help you and your audience, or if they're if this should generate some interest, they can get a hold of me through you or Spiritual Awakenings International, the website. There's a
Perfect.
little, and sometimes I'm a little slow because I get a lot of messages, but I eventually get around to them. But it's a real honor and a pleasure to be speaking to everyone here that's listening to this. And what I said is true. Your life is an adventure. Enjoy your ride.
It sounds like you've
That
got a little bit of a book in you down the road, not just the personal story part, but more the daily self awareness, self help, self love, living more, allowing more. Every bird has its own song was the title that jumped out at me, with life is an adventure and joy maybe as a subtitle. So, Robert, thank you
true.
so much for being on Angels
True.
Positivity and Love. It was a treat.
Thank you, Michael.